Alrighty guys, what is going on everybody? My name is BUZZZZ and welcome back to another Skylanders Giants individual Skylander review, and today I will be taking a look at my second giant figurine, and it will be the one and only BUZZZZ Swarm. So without further ado, of course, if you guys don't know how this works, basically what I do is I combine both reviewing the toy aspect of Skylanders as well as the gameplay aspect in order to blend the two factors that really make Skylanders as appealing as it is. So first off, we take a look at the toy form. I kind of point out what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and then we move on to, of course, the most exciting part, which is gameplay, where we see a ton of cool attacks and everything, and Swarm is no different in that regard, so make sure to stick around for the gameplay, or you could just go ahead and skip ahead if you are only interested in gameplay. But without further ado, now that I've blabbered enough, I don't know why I said it so weirdly, let's get to Swarm. So Swarm, as you can see, he is based off a bee. That is his idea, of course. He's of the air element, and he looks pretty gosh darn awesome. I really love his kind of like brown goldish hues. I'm gonna say this multiple times, both in the gameplay component and here. To me, he reminds me, if you took the Pokemon Scyther and you combined him with Beedrill and you had a magical baby between the two of them, which sounds really wrong, you would get Swarm. That is what you would get, and then you'd probably have to make it huge because neither one of those Pokemon are necessarily huge, so you'd probably have to like give him some sort of injection of steroids to make him ginormous. But let's take a look at him. He definitely has a very bug-like feel, definitely present. You could definitely get that feel. As you can see, he's got the giant stinger right here in the back, so he could come in and just sting you. He's got translucent wings, which is excellent. There's his elemental logo right over there, over the top. He's got a lot of character in his face. I really love these antennas that go all the way to the back. They even connect into almost like these backpack wing pieces, if you would want to call them, and you could see definitely a lot of kind of, you know how a lot of bugs have this type of almost like that kind of belly or something like that. Like, you know, a lot of beetles would have this type of design on their stomachs, and as you can see, that's present here as well on his stomach as well as on his arms. I love the fact that his spikes are translucent. So overall, design wise, he's abso-freaking-lutely awesome. That is the thing about Swarm. I think he is one of my favorite designs overall within the entire Skylanders Giants roster of characters. His design to me is very, very appealing. I think he looks very cool. He's got a very distinct look, and for that, I have to point out that design-wise, I really don't have any problems with him. I think he looks very characterful. He stands out on his own, and he's a definitely well-designed character. Gameplay-wise, we'll have to discuss that in a moment, but before we go to the gameplay, one last thing that we always do is, of course, bring in our portal of power, and then we place the Skylander, or in this case, the giant Skylander, onto the portal of power to see what happens when he lights up. So let's go take a look. As you can see, or maybe you can't really see well, his eyes light up. Now I'm gonna go ahead and actually turn off the lights right now, so you guys could tell better. There you go. You see? Bam! Look at that. That looks freaking awesome. So you can see that his eyes, both of the eyes light up very well, in fact. And his stinger right over here lights up relatively well as well. That is basically his light up feature. So now, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at some of Swarm's gameplay. Alrighty guys, so let's take a look at Swarm's statistics, upgrades, and then of course some gameplay. So let's kick things off with some stats, and right away it is absolutely obvious that Swarm has a very, very huge amount of health, which is something that I really did not expect to be characterful of him. I thought that looking at him, looking at his design, he looks like a character that would be very dynamic and very quick and such, but as you can see, his speed is actually not that high, to be honest. It's only 20, and unfortunately for him, he doesn't even have, unlike T-Rex, for example, where he's got an ability where he can run and kind of compensate for the fact that he's got not a very high speed. In Swarm's case, he doesn't even have an attack that could allow him to do that. Yes, you could argue that maybe his flying ability speeds him up, and it does, but it doesn't quite speed him up to the extent where you could make the argument that it's just as effective as T-Rex. But other than that, I do want to point out his armor is not very high. It's only level 12. It's only at 12. So again, a little unfortunate. I think that there is a very valid reason as to why Swarm is probably the most, him and Bouncer are very, I don't want to, well, Bouncer less so, but Swarm to me feels like he's not underrated, because I think that it's well deserved, to be honest, but at the same time, I feel like a lot of people do not find Swarm to be a very fun character to play as, and I think that I figured out why, and that reason is the fact that he shouldn't have been a giant. I feel like this is a... he doesn't feel like a character that... not that he doesn't deserve to be a giant, it just feels like he shouldn't have been chosen to be a giant. I think that there were other characters that it could have upscaled and made into a giant character instead of him. That being said, I'm sure some people will disagree with me, but what you have to be honest about is the fact that Swarm is probably, at least at the moment of this recording, or at the time of this recording I should say, is the least used and least liked giant by most people. But that being said, I think his design is brilliant. He looks so cool and so awesome, a very awesome design, and he definitely reminds me kind of a mix between like Beedrill and Scyther from Pokemon. I know that that's a completely different reference, but still, he does remind me of that. But without further ado, let's take a look at his upgrades, and they do seem fun on paper, but we'll see how they actually play out in just a moment. So first off, we've got his Barb Blade, which is one of his basic attack, basically allowing you to slash people. Next up, we've got Flight of the Wasp, which allows you to hover in the air, and then while you're flying, you are allowed to use your barbs to go ahead and fire them at enemies. Very cool. Next up, we've got an upgrade to your barbs, which allows you to further basically upgrade them. That was redundant, but allows you to further enhance them and allows you to do increased damage with them. Right after that, we've got the upgrade title Winging It, which allows you to then fly faster and for longer durations. And this is very, very useful for him, especially because he does lack a little bit of speed. And I know some people will say, well, he's a giant, he shouldn't be too quick. But in my opinion, if there's any giant that should be quick, it's him. I mean, look at him. He looks like he's designed for speed. I don't know, maybe it's just my pretentious mind, but in the way that I look at him, he looks to me like he should have been the quickest out of all the giants that are available, and I think that that's what should have been kind of his key expertise area. Next up, we've got a very cool ability. I really like this ability, and that is Swarm Form. By pressing B, basically you're allowed to turn into a swarm of bugs. Yay! Don't you ever feel like it's hilarious in all those old comedies where people getting chased by bees and such? This is just as fun. Basically, you become a giant swarm of different bugs. Primarily, it sounds like some sort of bees or maybe flies or something, and then you just get to assault your enemies, and it's very, very epic. Next up, we've got a very cool attack as well. It's basically kind of this Energy X almost, which basically by holding A to charge up and release to shoot a stinging energy blast. Very cool, and this move is very effective as well. Alright, so then here's the split off point where Swarm kind of obviously goes on two different paths. So the top path has Razor Wings, which looks very cool, and I wish that I got to see this in action. But that being said, in the top path, that is about the only upgrade that to me interests me. That being said, he also has Better Barb Blast, which again further upgrades your barb blasting abilities. So while you're hovering, your barb blast will do increased damage. And then finally, Ultimate Barbs, which basically allows you to increase the damage that all of your different varieties of barb attacks do. But the bottom path focuses on the Swarm Form, and for that, I have to think that this is a better path just because I find the Swarm Form to be the most fun of the path or of the attacks that Swarm has to offer. I mean, his name is Swarm. His Swarm Form makes sense that it would be fun to play as. But we've got Swarm Storm, which basically allows you to increase how large the Swarm Form is. And on top of that, it does increase damage. Next up, we've got, just for this name, you have to choose this path, which is Insectosplosion, which sounds amazing. But basically, while you're in Swarm Form, you press X, or on the Xbox, at least on the Xbox 360 version, you can also press RT to do a shockwave damage. And this is a very useful tool because of the fact that Swarm is not particularly quick. And in certain situations, it is difficult to kind of turn around in time to do damage. So Insect Explosion allows you to do damage to all the surrounding enemies. I'll show you that in gameplay in just a moment. And then we've got the Bee Cleaver, which basically, while you're in Swarm form, again, of course, this is the Swarm form. Swarm form. My goodness, it's a tongue twister. Basically, this is the Swarm form path. So, of course, again, while in Swarm form, press A to form a giant axe and swing at enemies. And this attack does a ton of damage, like 100 damage. It's very, very useful and very powerful. And finally, his final ability, which is unlocked via finding the Soul Gem in Cutthroat Carnival, which I believe is chapter number 4. And it is titled B is for Butt Stinger, which is a great name again. And while flying, press B to fire Butt Stinger missiles that track enemies. So now that we looked at all that jibber jabber, let's go ahead and actually take on an arena. And as you can see, I mean, look at the way he walks. He's so slow. I think he should be hovering all the time or just moving a little quicker. That being said, when he attacks, he definitely maneuvers quickly. Like, as you can see, his movement is very swift. But I just feel like that should have been followed through on his entire design. I think that it makes sense for him to be a very quick giant. I've said that many times, but I'm just repeating myself on that particular point. But I think that that's really kind of what hindered him from standing out on his own, from being not just a cool design, but a really fun character to play as. So first off, we'll wait for some enemies over here, and I'll show you just the basic barb attack right over here. So as you can see, it's just kind of a cool combo, slice and dice these fools over here. But as you can see, because you're a giant, sometimes it's difficult to target like these smaller enemies. Which is why I said, remember, the Insect Explosion is a very, very useful ability for him to deal with these types of situations. So now that we took a look at that, let's go into our hover mode and go ahead and show you the shooting barb. So as you can see, while you're hovering, you can actually shoot them, which is very useful. But unfortunately, as you can see, it's a relatively... Oh god, I didn't think you could fall by flying. But as you can see, it's a relatively weak ability, and it doesn't do far enough damage in my opinion, especially considering that Swarm is maxed out right now. So that's that. Let's see, what else is in basic form? Oh yeah, I gotta show you guys the butt stingers. So here are the butt stingers, and again, just like with the barbs, in my mind, I love the fact that they have tracker missiles, because that definitely makes them a little more fun in my mind. But I already went into my form. I feel like the butt stingers again are just a tiny little bit too weak. Like, they need a little bit of a boost to really stand out on their own, which, I mean, you could somewhat solve that problem by doing a lot of heroic challenges that would boost your attack and things like that. So you could enhance it, but that being said, I think that as by default, it shouldn't have been as weak as it was. And now let's enjoy the best part, which in my mind is Swarm form. So first off, you do damage just by being in Swarm form. So as you saw, basically while I'm in Swarm form, I could just walk into enemies and cause a ton of damage that way, which is awesome. The other thing is, while you're in Swarm form, let me show you the axe ability. Check this out. Bam! You saw that 120 damage. How cool is that? That is pretty gosh darn amazing if you think about it. Oh god, I'm being chased. Alright, I gotta get rid of these fools, make sure that that doesn't happen. And now let's show you Insect Explosion, which is basically, as you can see, it's kind of like a... it almost reminds me of Hothead's oil drum attack. It's definitely in that vein of attack, so definitely similar in that sense, kind of doing a lot of splash damage in the process. And definitely useful in that in different situations where there are a ton of enemies, for example, attacking you, and therefore you are able to clear them out from all different sides. Like right here, I'm in trouble actually. Oh gosh, there we go. Thank goodness that I cleared those guys. But as you can see, I mean, he has potential. It just feels like to me, it almost like feels like they kind of like they were making this character, and then some point they're just kind of like, okay, we gotta ship it, that's it. Like, it feels like he was rushed. Maybe if he got a little more love, like probably the later giants do, like Hothead and such, maybe he would have been a little better. But that being said, I just feel like Swarm is a little bit underwhelming, but as a design, he gets a 5 out of 5 for me, just for looking how he does, just because to me he's probably one of the coolest looking giants. Like, for example, if you look at T-Rex, as cool as he looks, he's not like, you don't look at him and you're like, whoa, look at that, I'd love to play as that character. You look at Swarm and you're like, whoa, that thing looks freaking awesome. That's why people love BUZZZZ, and that's why people love Scyther, is because he's got these claw arms and everything. And in that, just for those simple reasons, both of those Pokemon have a lot of fans, and that's why I think, as just the way he looks, Swarm is awesome. But unfortunately, to me, again, this is my opinion, he's an underwhelming giant. He could have been an awesome Skylander, but considering the fact that I take into account the fact that you would pay an additional $5 to $7 for this guy, depending on where you purchase him, more than a regular Skylander figure, he just doesn't feel like his gameplay lives up to what it should be, and he doesn't feel like he should be a giant at all. That's my opinion. That being said, I'd love to know what you guys think in the comment section below, but the rating, the official rating for Swarm will be a solid 7.5. He kicked butt on design. I think some of his attacks are very awesome. I think Swarm form, especially in the B cleaver, is very cool as well. But some other things do not live up to expectations, such as B is for Butt Stinger. That particular attack could have been a little stronger, or maybe they should have made like the stingers bigger and then slow down how fast you could shoot the stingers, but make them stronger. I think that there should have been a couple things that they could have tweaked to really make him stand out. But that being said, a 7.5 is still a solid rating, and I'd love to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Of course, please guys, hit that like button to show support. Also share the video, favorite the video. That's another way to another great way to show support for the series. If you guys don't want to miss out on future Skylander reviews, please hit that subscribe button so that you get all those videos delivered to your subscription box. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll catch you guys next time. Blitzwinger out, and see you later.